All right, welcome to Lunchalytics 45. Today we have two groups speaking about AI. The first one's going to be live webcast. The second one will not because it's so good it would break the internet. So we have Bruce Dalton, a partner at 8 Partners, and Corey Jansen, the CEO of AltaML, who you did see a little bit of rather recently, are going to be talking about the Alberta AI plan. And followed up, for those of you here, you're going to hear from Dornoosh Zanubi. She is the CEO of Meadow, which uses AI in diagnostic imaging. So without further ado, I will invite Bruce up to just get ready, and then I'll quickly ask my two favorite questions. Is anyone here looking for a job? Raise your hands. You're looking for a job in analytics. So we have a few hands up, okay? And is anyone here offering jobs for analysts? So we have a couple hands over here. So in the break, see if we can clear the market. And do you want to mention the Meadow? Our speaker at Meadow is hiring right at the end of today. So that's great news. Excellent. You can mention that maybe in your talk. Perfect. Okay, so without further ado, take it away, Bruce.
All right, thanks very much, Dan. My name is Bruce Dalton, and my company is called 8 Partners. We're a founder, investor, advisor to early stage technology companies and have a focus on AI and machine learning. I'm here today to talk about. Oh, sorry, geez, failed already. How's that? Better. Okay, I'm here today to talk about a business plan that's been developed by the community regarding AI here in Edmonton and also in Alberta. Corey Jansen's my co-presenter. He's not here yet. He had a lunch right up till noon, so that's a disadvantage of starting. I want him to be here at the end just to answer any questions. But I'm going to go through this at a very high level. There's a lot of information, and either at the end of our session, if we have time, or during the lunch, be pleased to answer any questions that you might have. So the backstory here is the fall of 2017, myself, Corey Jansen, who runs AltaML, and also Aaron Flynn, who had just recently left BioWare at that time, we realized we had a huge opportunity here in Edmonton regarding AI, artificial intelligence. There's a lot of hype, a lot of things going on in the world, but we realized here in Edmonton there's a very unique, probably a once-in-a-generation opportunity to do something here in the city and in Alberta, and we had a special advantage over other regions. So we kind of just had a bit of a thought of experiment saying, what could we do to create a community of 100 AI companies and projects in Edmonton in the next 2 years? What would that look like? What would we have to do as a community to do that? So we started talking about it, and then middle of last year, Deloitte Consulting offered to do a session, they call it a Challenger City session, in order to get the community together and see how we could build the AI industry locally. I personally thought we'd get 20, 25 people, talk about it for a day and come up with a plan. We ended up getting 70 people there. 34 organizations over a 2-day session. And at about the same time, the government of Alberta very quietly said, you know what, we may be willing to invest in this space. So if you, the community, can come up with a business plan that can be a foundational plan for the entire province, we would entertain an ask to the provincial government. So we knew that was happening as well. So we spent the summer coming up with a plan, which I'm going to show you here today at a very high level. The reason why we're here, and many people may have actually seen this slide, but it's a website called csrankings.org, computersciencerankings.org. And basically what the site does is they track all the computing science research in the world. And if you go to the site and you click on the geographic region, so here we've got the world, and you put in the time frame for basically the last 20 years, and then you click on artificial intelligence and machine learning, you'll see the University of Alberta is ranked number 3 in the world. How many people were aware of that? Quite a few now. A lot of people didn't realize that a year and a half ago. So we just saw this as a huge opportunity to say, how can we leverage this research that we have, this research strengths we have at the University of Alberta and the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute? How can we create economic wealth from that? How can we create jobs? How can we create companies out of that? Secondly, we said, well, we're here in Alberta. Where do we need to focus? And so really what we wanted to look at, what industries in Alberta are we really strong in the sense of, you think of energy, construction, and engineering as obvious ones, but financial services, we're the headquarters in Edmonton of ATB, Canadian Western Bank, AIMCO, Service. There's a lot of domain expertise in the city, in this province, that we can take advantage of. So we thought, well, how can we combine the two? What do we need to do in order to create jobs and wealth out of that? So we put together a steering committee of people from a cross section of different people in the province, not only academia with Amy and the University of Alberta, but also with the innovation ecosystem, small businesses, large businesses, AI companies, investors. And we met every Friday afternoon in 2000, from about July till November in 2018, every Friday afternoon for 3 hours to come up with this plan. We went through a whole consultation process. It was led by Deloitte. We did a bunch of interviews. We had a number of meetings, community meetups, consultations, and the result was the plan that I'm going to talk to you about today. The plan itself is like over 100 pages long. What I'm going to show you today is a bit of the summary. So the vision of what we decided, what we felt the opportunity was, is that we can create a world-class hub for AI-driven products and services, creating a $1 billion industry in 2025. We really believe that's possible here in this province. So our ambition is to continually grow a local ecosystem of fundamental and applied research, talent, data, infrastructure, and capital that leads to the creation of commercially focused intellectual property and ethically responsible, globally competitive AI-driven products, services, and companies. I realize that's a huge mouthful, but if you actually unpack that sentence into the individual pieces, that contains all the things we need to do in this province and in the city if we want to create an industry. So what we did was come up with a series of initiatives addressing a bunch of different areas. So our end game or goal was really economic growth. And what we mean by that is really to create jobs, create new companies, create AI projects within existing companies. And as we looked at that, we realized there's 5 key areas that we need to focus on. So talent, research and development, industry solutions, that should say infrastructure there, and market presence. And we identified a number of initiatives in each one of these areas that we can start that would help us build up this industry. So we call them enablers, and I'll just go through them very, very quickly. There's a whole series of initiatives under each one, and probably the most important one is talent. We realize that, or we have seen that companies like DeepMind, Google's DeepMind is here, Borealis AI, Huawei, Mitsubishi, a number of other companies have set up operations at Edmonton primarily due to the talent. So that talent is right at the top in terms of the researchers, if it's Michael Bowling or Richard Sutton, but also the community science grads, the science grads that are engineering grads that come out of the university. It's the students coming out of all the other post-secondary institutions here. So we realize that we need to keep investing in the talent. We have to increase the quantity of the talent that's coming out of our post-secondaries. We also have to increase the quality of our talent in the sense of the skill sets. So we have to have the technical talent, but we also need the skills that will translate research into products. So that's the business talents, the executive talent, product development expertise, et cetera. So we have a series of initiatives, including things like internship programs, recruiting programs to attract more people to the province, and a number of other areas that, again, will increase the supply and the quality of the talent here. Research and development, this is an obvious one. There was foresight from the government of Alberta and the University of Alberta in early 2000s when they created the forerunner of AMI, the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute. That was a huge investment that was made that's allowed us to be here today. And so that slide I showed you at the beginning where we're number 3 in the world, a year ago, in May of last year, we were actually number 2 in the world. And Tsinghua University in China is going up the ranks. There are billions of dollars to be invested by the Chinese government into AI research in China. We're now number 3. So we recognize that we have to keep investing into our research capacity here. We have to have endowed chairs for professors. Those professors they supervise graduate students. Those graduate students can teach classes. And then it's basically a cascading system where it all ties together. So we have to keep expanding the academic research capacity, but we also need to expand and help companies expand their applied research capacity, industrial research capacity. So in order to take, a lot of fundamental research is done here, but we also need to increase the research that's done within the corporations to help translate that research into products. The third area is infrastructure, and this is really the components they're really needed for all technology companies, all those infrastructure pieces that are needed for any company that's growing. But there's some specific things that we need to focus on in the AI space. So it's really everything from making sure we have the right capital available, early stage seed capital, venture capital, private equity, M&A expertise, going through the whole pipeline of companies as they grow throughout the system. We also believe, and one of the highest priority items is actually the establishment of an accelerator program. It's something we don't have here in Edmonton. But if you look at Y Combinator or Techstars, and a program like that, I'm a mentor to the Techstars AI program in Montreal. We need that here. And so that's one of the top items that we'd like to get funding for. We also need to be able to push, kind of coalesce the community together in order to push them in, work together as a community. If it's meetups, working with Startup Edmonton, EEDC, and other organizations to try to get some grassroots efforts going here that allows to push the whole industry forward. And when Corey shows up, we'll be talking about some of those at the very end. Industry solutions. This is an area where we think is actually critically important. And really what it means is, what are the problems, the Alberta business problems that AI can solve? How do we identify, if we really want to create wealth and create jobs, we have to be able to solve business problems that when you solve them, they'll create some economic wealth. So we believe and know we have to work very strongly with industry. Amy right now has got a bunch of programs that are trying to tie into industry. They have an industry affiliates program. I see a few people from Amy here that can talk about that at the end. But the ability to get industry involved in the AI space, for them to become more knowledgeable about AI, but also transfer that knowledge, those skill sets into those companies. We think there's opportunities to create AI product development programs. And one of the really interesting ones are the data sets. And this is actually a piece, not only in the industry side, but also in the infrastructure side. So in the oil and gas industry, for example, there's a tremendous amount of data. And if you think of AI as, the algorithm is the jet engine, the data is the fuel. If we can make these data sets available, it can actually act as a bit of an economic development tool. It can act as the foundation formation of different companies. There's also a lot of government data that's available, and I'm thinking health in particular. You'll see Dornusha's presentation. Their company uses a tremendous amount of data, radiology data, that we actually, if we can get greater sources from the health sector, there's an opportunity to create new companies or make Dornusha's and other companies stronger and larger. So a number of things that we can do, not only making the data sets available, but there's other issues related to privacy and security and everything else that we have to deal with. So the last piece is market presence. And this is really making sure the world knows what's going on here in Edmonton. So Edmonton Economic Development Corporation is doing a lot of these things, but we need the people in the know worldwide. They know that AI is big here at the University of Alberta, but the business community really doesn't know this. And they think of Canada, they think of Toronto, Montreal. So we really have to take the effort to make sure the world knows what's going on here in Edmonton. So if it's trade shows or trade missions, events, there's a number of things that we can do in this space. There's a couple other things I'd just like to highlight that are really out of our direct control as a steering committee and as a community. But there's a number of things that can also happen in the community that I think would drive our industry in a positive way. One of them is changing the IP policies at the universities. We know that if there can be some tweaks or wholesale changes to the U of A IP policy, we really think that'll go a long ways of bringing some of that IP into the public or into the private sector, where we can create some companies around that. And the other one that's come up a bit more recently is that you may be aware that last year there was a digital media, basically a gaming industry, a labor tax credit that was announced last year. What we're asking the government to do, expand the definition of that to make it an AI tax credit. So it's a labor tax credit. If you hire someone, you'll be able to get a tax credit for that job that you hire. We think it'd have a tremendous impact, positive impact on local companies here, but also attract other companies to the province. That's just a quick summary of the initiatives. At the end of the day, really what we're trying to do is create a pipeline of talent, a pipeline of companies, a pipeline of jobs. And if you kind of look at how a company is formed, it really starts off, there's some fundamental research, you move into applied research, you go through the development and commercialization phase. This area here really is the domain of the U of A and Amy. Like, we are only here because of Amy and the U of A. We would not be having this conversation if they weren't actually here. So that's really in the domain on this side, but we need to keep building out the infrastructure in order to commercialize that research. And if we can do that, our argument to the government of Alberta is that we can generate significant economic growth. We can create a very substantial industry, we can diversify our economy, and we can provide a bit more stability in the industry. And if you actually look at the companies that are starting, that are here. Just in the last 18 months, several companies have started hiring hundreds of people in this space. So we think there's an opportunity to multiply that by a factor of 10. So where we're at now is we put an ask into the provincial government, this steering committee, and also Amy, the Machine Intelligence Institute, to a joint ask to get some funding from the government of Alberta. We don't exactly know where that's at. We've made the ask. It kind of goes into the budget abyss. With the economic uncertainty, with the election coming up, we have no idea what's going to happen in that space. We're hoping that they might find some budget dollars in this year's budget to fund some of the initiatives. But what we've also been told is often what happens is even though we've got this great, comprehensive strategy, they'll pick this, they'll pick this, they'll pick this. And it's the items that kind of match their certain priorities. So we don't know where they're at, but I will have an ask at the end, because we have been told as of in the last couple of days that our proposal and Amy's proposal is literally on the Premier's desk this week. And we need to make sure the community is telling the Premier and the Minister of Finance that this is important. So I'm going to have an ask related to that. Having said that, we can't wait as a community. The window for AI is closing in terms of being able to establish a leadership position. I mentioned that Tsinghua University is going up the rankings, U of A is falling. There is a huge amount of investment and growth. We have an opportunity today to take advantage of that here in Edmonton. I was in Asia last year with Amy, and there is a huge amount of interest with what's going on here, but we have to act quickly. So we have to keep moving forward regardless of any sort of investment that is needed, not only from the government of Alberta, government of Canada, but also from private industry. So there's a number of things that are happening now. I mean, this event is great. It gets people together. Amy has a number of different events and seminars, and I think we can talk about that at the end. And also there's a number, AltaML, the chief data scientist or CTO of AltaML, Martian has a data science meetup. Corey Jansen and I are going to be running kind of a business AI meetup as well that we're going to be starting in the next month or so. So there's a number of things we can do as a community to keep the conversation going and to make sure that we keep pushing the industry forward. So I have an ask. We were told last week by a couple MLAs and some people in the bureaucracy that this proposal that you've seen here is literally on the desk of Premier Notley and Minister of Finance Joe Ceci. And they recommended to us that we generate as many letters of support as possible to send into the Premier and to the Minister of Finance saying you support this. So we sent an ask out over the weekend to do that. We've had a large number of letters go in. But I'd like to ask you, if you're willing to support this, if you think this is important for Edmonton and for the province, I'd ask you to send an email to that email address. And what we will do is we will send you a template, a letter of support, and also a copy of these slides so you can see what the detail, like look at the slides in a bit more detail, and send a letter this week, tomorrow if possible, both to Premier Notley and to Joe Ceci saying this is important, please consider funding this proposal overall. So I'm going to end it there, but I think at the very end, if we have some time, we'll also want to, when Corey shows up, we'll want to talk about some of the initiatives that are underway. And I'm hoping that maybe someone from Amy can actually talk about some of what's going on with Amy and where there's opportunities for people in the audience to get involved in the AI space.
Excellent. Thank you, Bruce. And so, against our habit, we're not going to ask questions yet. We're going to save them till the end. I see the food has arrived. I think we're going to take a 7.5, maybe 8-minute break to rush out there and line up in a way that will go quickly. And then we'll come back here for the next session. But before we filter out, I wanted to give a shout out to the sponsors, ATB, Platinum sponsor, Go Auto, yet another Platinum sponsor, Dark Horse, pat on the back to us, and Alberta Data Products, and Nate are also sponsoring it. If you want your name shouted across the internet just like that, come talk to me and we can set you up with a sponsorship, both in Edmonton or in Calgary or province-wide, maybe even globally, if you'd like. So we're open.
Can I just say one more thing?
Oh, yes.
Just in case I forget at the end, Corey Jansen and myself are going to start another meetup, conformal meetup. It'll be a breakfast thing, really to talk about startups and AI, business and AI. We're going to do it once a month. So if you want to be included on that mailing list, if you could just find me and give me your email address or give me your business card if you have one. And we'll get you on the invite list for that event. So that'll be happening, first one will likely be happening in February.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Go ahead. We'll meet back here in 8.5 or 9 minutes. Oh, and live stream people, we're sorry. We'll have to let you go now. Thanks for coming.